Hello. We are in the so-called Petrograd ski district, the Petrograd Island, actually comprised of several islands, but under one name, Petrograd ski district. And as you can see, we are really close to the kind of the oldest part of the city, Peter and Paul Fortress. And a couple of weeks ago, I did a tour in the empty apartment of the former court artist of Nicholas II and the curator of the Hermitage collection. And then I thought to myself, it would be a good idea to show you, some of the areas where we used to live. And uh, basically, what we need to see. So you see the Bolshoy Prospect that's written there. That's the street we're going to be walking, and you can see on the map the street that runs across the Bolshoy Prospect, Kameno-Ostrovsky Avenue. The Kameno-Ostrovsky Avenue we have already seen. This is the so-called Art Nouveau Avenue that I told you about. And but it's not only the Kameno-Ostrovsky Avenue that has Art Nouveau. There are other areas that have it too. So we're going to explore it, but not only Art Nouveau, but a lot of Art Nouveau. Why a lot of Art Nouveau? Because this area was developing, you started to develop at a actually frantic pace, especially at the turn of the 20th century when the Trinity Bridge was constructed. The Trinity Bridge, you can actually see here, if you go to the right from the Peter and Paul Fortress, you see a bridge over the water. That's the Trinity Bridge I'm talking about. So once it connected it connected the Petrogradsky district with everything else, with the area of the Winter Palace and the rest of the downtown, the price of the land skyrocketed, and this is when every landlord started investing in the construction of their residential buildings. And then there would be the tram line led, and the trams would go all the way along the Trinity Bridge. And a lot of rich people moved to that area or just invested in the construction. We spoke about it last time. Well, I'm not talking about each and every house, obviously. I'm just, talking about the houses that have some past or some interesting stories. Well, for example, this postcard what was addressed to the house exactly at the corner. This one, the corner house, one of the families that lived here. It's just, a postcard someone discovered in one of the flea markets, and it was the person who shared this photograph on one of the local forums. So you can't really easily find this information if you don't speak Russian. It's like a very local forum. And so this person who discovered this postcard lived in this house. And that's the same house that you can see in this photograph that I showed you at the very beginning of the tour. That's the house, and one part of it that you can see from another corner. This is like really interesting, and the person lived in this house. I can't read it. I don't really know what's going on in there, but it's just, kind of an interesting detail that I wanted to share with you. But anyway, so this is the avenue, Bolshoy, just a big avenue that ran across the street. Actually, this avenue started to be developed even before the big Kamenostrovsky, the big Art Nouveau Avenue. So it's so called. But usually here, before the big bridge was constructed, this area was more seen as, kind of the country houses. It was a little bit too quiet. There also was a botanical garden not far from here, from times of Peter the Great. So it was like, a little countryside, very close to the city. But because there was no bridge, it was a little bit more problematic to get to the other shore, to get to the other side of the Neva River. Well, but those people who happened to have a little summer house here became super rich like overnight, like the Kalishka family. The Kalishka family used to have a small summer house. It looks like now, according to the documents, they didn't have the summer house, but they bought the summer house shortly before the bridge was constructed. Like they were there at the right time, just before the prices skyrocketed. And in one of the pre-revolutionary journals, um, I found an article about a Kalishka family being so brutal, in destroying a cute summer house to build a big tenant house. So basically, they are the fighters, for the preservation of the cultural heritage, of architectural heritage, but like, a century ago. I found these photographs of the decoration of the ceiling of a small one-story country house that they used to be standing on the spot, on that plot of land, where the Kalishka family eventually built their residential building. It's just funny to see that there were also, advocates for, preservation of heritage and listed buildings. However, it wasn't really listed. It's just interesting, right? Yeah, I used to be a volunteer when I lived in Moscow. I used to be a volunteer at the community, the volunteers for the preservation of listed buildings. And I just remembered, those days. I didn't go to, riots. I didn't go to demonstrations, but I would write, letters officials to development companies and things like that in Moscow back in 2015, 2014, 13 even, and I I did my bit, you know. Actually, one house was meant to be taken down, but eventually, it's not only just, I'm not taking all the credit for it, but my effort paid off. And eventually, the company decided not to take down the building, but they were given permission to build the building behind a small wooden house on the plot. Yeah, lovely. So, and I also found some photographs from the Kalishka house. I think they could have done a little bit better, but also I just realized that probably, I mean, they could have done a better job in decorating this residential building, but I also realized that they probably were after just getting the tenants that could eventually, the earnings could pay off with the rent for all for the mortgage, for the loans, because obviously it's not like it was common to get a loan from banks for the landlords, for the proprietors to build houses. It wasn't just the private money, their own funds, but also loans. So normally, usually, unless those were very rich people, nobody would really just pour down everything they had because the loan the conditions were pretty lean and pretty comfortable, compared to what it is now, unfortunately. Yeah. So I found these photographs, as usual, during the Soviet period, communal apartments. And then at some point, people started moving out, rooms will be purchased. But there is still, in these the communal apartments among the Soviet and post-Soviet hell, one can still find the beautiful details such as the original stoves with the original tiles, all these very old boiler and the shower from the beginning of the 20th century. Isn't it cool? So this is just the boiler with the hot water, with the cold water, and then there is a little stove where you would put the wood and you would make it warm, and then you have the shower, and you have the warm shower just like that. And it was still in use. These are the photos from the 2011 or 2012. It was still in use. Imagine a century later, it was still in use. The old fridge that was still in use. The stove, probably not in use, but still there in a very good condition. Even the details of the ceiling in one of the apartments. Isn't it amazing? Anyway, so we move on. And because Bolshoy Avenue is intersected by so many other streets. I'm not going into this now, but every now and then you can come across, a very old building from well, 1700s even, but sometimes you can come across a building from the 1930s, 1930s, 1950s. Well, like this one, for example, the one at the corner with the arched windows. This is the Soviet period. This is the Stalin period. And well, because not all the buildings were listed, there were a lot of very like plain, even ugly looking, but old buildings. I think I even showed you some of them at the beginning, like at the previous tour, some of a building that looking just as unassuming as a building can look, but with the walls and bricks originally from like 1730s. That's a big deal, but this building is nothing really special in it. So obviously something new will be constructed. Plus, we need to keep in mind that after the Second World War, after the siege of Leningrad, a lot of buildings were destroyed, and there will be something built on the spot for sure, like the one on the corner. Uh, exactly the same story. Well, this is the so-called Rybatsky Square, a little garden. Well, it's kind of a very small square with a monument. A monument is an interesting thing. It's the monument to Dobrolubov, Nikolai Dobrolubov. I'm pretty sure no one has ever heard this name, but Nikolai Dobrolubov, who was actually a philosopher and one of the first so-called um, social democrats, a little bit of a liberal, in the 1860s, 1870s. Well, very early. So early that actually Karl Marx spoke of him. The Karl Marx spoke of him. So big deal. So obviously during the Soviet period, well, we know that the Bolsheviks would try to eliminate any mentions of, most of the, let's say, politicians, writers, and all other activists would eliminate this name from the imperial town. But Dobrolubov, no, there was a street, there was a square named after him because even Karl Marx spoke very highly of Dobrolubov. But anyway, so the Bolshoy Avenue. This is a very, very poor quality postcard, the only one I have been able to find of that very corner. And again, you can see a tram turning over there. Very poor quality, but you just need to trust me. And well, there are no trams anymore because it was believed that they really like prevented, well, kind of caused a lot of traffic jams in the recent years, so they've gotten rid of it. It looks like some tram lines are going to be restored, at least in some areas of the city. I don't know. But anyway, also in the street, there was, well, the Petrogradsky Island, Petrogradsky district, because it was, I would say, underdeveloped compared to the rest of the city. Well, right before the bridge was constructed and inaugurated, it still had a lot of like free plots of land. And since before that, it was seen more like as a recreational area with parks, summer houses. Um, there was still a lot of space. And there was a Luna Park. There was a big, there was also botanical garden, and there is a botanical garden, but that's not private property. There was also so-called theme park, and there were theaters. There were big restaurants with a lot of terraces, with private gardens, and there was this building. It's called Niagara. It was a theater. And in the Niagara, on the territory, later on, there was also placed the cinema. There was also a cinema, and well, when they showed the black and white movies, there was an orchestra playing. Just the tappers, the same story, and it was one of the very popular, actually, theaters and then cinemas. But now the building is gone, long gone. You won't find that. Looking beautiful though. I'm happy that I can share the photos of the houses, well, of the buildings that used to be there. Well, and that's what happened to it in the Soviet period, and then everything was totally gone, as you can see. And there is just, a big yellow building, the one with the diplomat store, right, standing and on the spot of Niagara. However, the building that belonged to a certain Vasiliev is still there. And that house was actually a branch. It was rented by that's Vasiliev, Andrei Vasiliev, the merchant, actually a highly respected man, a member, and for several years, the president of the Merchants Committee. So big deal, when merchants became even politicians and sort of activists. And the ground floor of the building was rented by the famous Yeliseyev store. You probably remember, Yeliseyev store on the Nevsky Avenue. We even visited the house of the Yeliseyev brothers. So a small branch opened on in this area of the city. One would think, well, Yeliseyev store was the most expensive food store in the city, and there was already one just, well, technically speaking, with the bridge there, maybe 15 minutes drive, in the in the horse carriage. But like, why would they need to open the store there because just 15 minutes drive and you would be by the other real estate store? Because of how many rich people moved to that area. So there were so many rich people moved or owned property or like to hang out there, and also would have some summer property there still deep down, or so that it was feasible for a big, very expensive store to open its branch there. Big time, big deal. Anyway, we just have some photographs. I mean, it looks lovely, isn't it? In the Soviet period, for some time here functioned the Pioneers Palace. That's where pioneers took oath. There were official ceremonies, inaugurations, graduations, and all sorts of things. But of course, I want to take you to this house. Looks very Finnish, Swedish to me. This is the northern Art Nouveau at its best, the Putilova house. Putilov was the owner of a lot of factories, and especially the founder and the main shareholder of the factory that produced rails for the railroad. And that was a big deal. So Putilova, it was just registered under the name of the wife, that was a very common thing. And I mean, look at this house. This is just gorgeous example of Northern Art Nouveau. Very dark local stone on the facade. The architect Hippolyte Pretro. We haven't really, I don't think I've ever really mentioned this architect. He mostly built on that side of the city in the Petrogradsky island, and that was actually his sketch published in one of the journals. And so dark stone on the facade, local stone. Also the plaster, the way the plaster was worked out, that's it was a special technique to make it rough. And also I think it's very practical because all the plaster with time would get darker, would get dusty, but with this shade, having it gray, I think it just a very practical thing that could have been done and that had been done. And of course, local flora and fauna in the decor, in the decoration. So obviously the owls. How can one do without the owls? And a lot of birds, actually. One of the nicknames of the house is the bird house because there are a lot of birds, and because there is one bird exactly on the corner. I will show you later on. But I also asked Alec to go into the courtyard, because the courtyard is actually different from what you see on the front facade. But the doors are just absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. And also the stoves, the design of the stoves, it just completely mimics the design of the doors. So have a look. There's the same, elements, the same geometry. Um, Absolutely gorgeous, as if you were entering a cave or the kingdom, or somewhere in the forest. Oh, by the way, this is interesting. This block, sorry, I'll show it once again. Yeah, over there, you see this yellow building? It's also one of the oldest examples of the local architecture. Nothing beautiful there, right? But it's like the originally, well, obviously the roof, the plaster is new. Well, not looking good either, but originally this is like some of the earliest examples of architecture in that area. From the back, it's just the brickwork, however, because just imagine the use of stone, it just would be too expensive. And I like this elevators. It looks surreal to me. Who would have thought, right, that from the back this house looks so uh plain, but with the elevators, however, with the elevators. Yeah. So I guess it's kind of one of the ideas of Art Nouveau, that the building has to look beautiful and harmonious all the way through, inside out, and also, kind of had to be mm, had to have the same decorations. But no, it's not the case, because it just, imagine, it was expensive, very expensive, such building. So, but it was a tenant house again. It belonged to Putilova, by the way. When the house was constructed, she already became a widow, but she had a lot of money, so she was okay. She was okay. So that bird over there, that's exactly why the house is called the bird house. Well, unofficially, it's not really, you know, it's not even the name that kind of stuck with everyone, but sometimes, every once in a while people call it so. And that bird was absent, just disappeared sometime, in the Soviet period, and just quite recently it was put back on. Someone decided to restore it, and there you go. So beautiful Putilova house. So this type of Art Nouveau, you are not going to find in many areas in the downtown, but in St. Petersburg, in the Petrograd Island, you'll find quite a number of buildings of the similar kind. And we saw some of it. We saw some of these buildings on the Kamenostrovsky Avenue and Art Nouveau Avenue, and we are going to see even more. So this is exactly the Kamenostrovsky, the avenue that I'm talking about, or as in French perspective, Kamenostrovsky. This is the avenue that we walked first, the so-called Art Nouveau Avenue. If you look at the map here, so the okay, how do I say it? So you see the blue street, the blue lane. This is the Bolshoy Avenue, and right across it goes the Kamenostrovsky Avenue. And we need to get to the Kamenostrovsky Avenue. Why? Because I want to take you to the Museum of Fans, the Art of Fan Museum. Uh, mm, on this map, you see the Museum of St. Petersburg Avant-Garde. That's the museum I'll be taking you next time. And also, if you go to the upper section, there is a museum called Искусство Vera. For some reason, it hasn't been translated, but it just was transliterated. But that's the museum we are going to see. You may remember the building in which the museum used to be housed. You may remember it. Well, it's the house from the early 1900s. It's one of the most expensive kind of co-operational house. It had state-of-the-art, facilities. Uh, Even the special inbuilt vacuum cleaners that were all connected to one and the same system. I don't ask me how it worked, but they just had, let's say, a special pipe that would go through all the floors, and that it had, special hose, that would stretch for a long time. You would adjust it, you would connect it, then you vacuum, and everything kind of gets sucked somehow through that one big pipe. I don't know the details. Don't ask. It also had air conditioning system. It had elevators. It had its own electric station. Turn down, please, the volume. Okay, Grisha? Thank you. So, like, gorgeous house. And haven't really been there. Well, I mean, I hadn't been there until I visited the Museum of Art of Fan. That's what this house looks like. Huge, beautiful, very expensive. Some of the most expensive apartments you can find in that area are actually in this very house. I mean, there is a lot to see in this area, but this is more for locals than for tourists. That's why I love it. And that's why I never really took you there and on my live walking tours back in the times when I lived in St. Petersburg. Well, because on the one hand, I thought, well, there's not so much to see. I still had so much more to show you. I still have so much more to show you. But now that I am homesick, I want to go there. You just tend to want to go to your comfort zone. So at one of the corners in the corner section of this house, there several rooms were rented by this private museum, really museum, like unique museum, the Art of Fan. There are several rooms. They're all themed, and it's a private museum. The interiors are just incredible. The interior decoration is just incredible. However, the interiors is all new, but it mimics the interiors of some of the Romanov palaces that there are. However, the fireplaces were moved. The fireplaces are not original to this palace, but they were purchased. They were the historic ones purchased by the owner of the museum and placed. Well, for example, this fireplace used to be in the palace of the Yusuf. Oh, sorry, no, this one. Sorry, not the not the brown one, but this marble one used to be in the palace of the Yusuf family. Big time, right? Okay. So there are several rooms, and the two rooms are solely about the fans' history. It's more than just beautiful fans. It's fans, with some stories, with the history. And the museum actually tries to trace the history of fan. There are 3 museums in the world that are dedicated solely to fans. There's one in France, and it's like not very accessible. It's a private collection. There's one in London, huge museum, true, established, I think, early 20th century or late 19th century, something like that. And this is like, and this one. I don't really know why the museum closed. It might reopen, but I have on my Facebook, on my camera roll, I have about 100 something photographs and very short videos. I regret it that I hadn't really been filming. I hadn't really been making long videos of the museums that I visited because, well, I visited so many and not only in St. Petersburg. Well, but anyway, so there are 2 rooms. For example, this one is called the Palisander room because of the furniture made from palisander wood, and it has the fans from all over the world. The earliest, the oldest exhibit is from the end of the 1600s, so the end of the 17th century. That's like older than St. Petersburg even is. And the floor, by the way. So again, the interiors are all new, but they mimic the interiors of the Romanov palaces. Like the floor, for example, is also made from palisander wood. Yeah, and also, I'm sorry for the quality, but I was in this museum, I think in 2017, maybe 2016, I don't remember. And like, I had an old iPhone, and anyway, but I also had some, I, I also had some well, photographs that I worked on and photoshopped a little bit. So I think it's all good. Well, it could have been worse. Yeah, and again, the museum closed, so we wouldn't find a better video, unfortunately. So it is what it is, and a lot of and the furniture is antique. The person who owns it, Andrei Pilayev, is actually a mathematician, but something's telling me that he probably had some other talents, um, because the collection actually the collection has on display about 300 fans, but there is a lot more said to have been in the storage. And this room, the second room, is called Room of Louis the 14th, the Sun King. Judy, thank you so much for your tip. Well, technically, it's the room totally devoted to the French fans because the French were the trendsetters, and fans were just the inseparable, absolutely integral element, of women's outfit. So obviously, fans played a big role, in the general, looks of a lady. And yeah, the French happen to be the trendsetters. The most precious exhibits are actually in that closet over there between the windows, but we will see it in the end. Yeah, so at the end of the tour, we will approach that. So, the in the museum, well, I took a private tour. I would always flesh out on private tours, and I took a lot of photographs. I only wish that I had also filmed it. But anyway, so in this Louis the 14th room, there was also the parquet floor. That is actually the exact copy of one of the parquet floors designed by the court architect of Peter the Great. Like, come on. I'm a mathematician. I I don't know. Anyway, in the museum, they told us that actually it happened to be the Chinese that invented the fans. And back in the days, that for the Chinese, these fans mostly were used by men. And then the Japanese also picked up, the fan making, and then with the Great Silk Road, and then later on during the extensive trade, eventually, well, with Europe, alongside porcelain and silk, also fans would be purchased, and then in Europe, you they figured out how to make this. Not really, it wasn't really rocket science to know how to make a fan. So that's why it took them a little less time to figure out how to make fans than to figure out how to make porcelain. So yeah, that's okay. And that's why the museum also has a good collection of Chinese and Japanese fans, since they were the founders, the inventors of the fans, whatnot. Obviously, these are not the first, the old fans. These are from the 19th century. And as I said, I would say the biggest collection, the core of the collection, is mostly 19th century fans. Like this one is from China, scenes of court life, 1880s. So, and I'm not a specialist in fans. I had to do, some vocabulary work. And it happens to be that all the terms are mostly in French because they were the trendsetters. Well, this one clearly is looking very oriental. Well, they're very, very Chinese or Japanese. I don't know. And you can see that they come from they come of different sizes, shapes, and also different structures. And yes, so they also come with different designs. And you can see a lot of different varieties of topics, just varieties of them. So obviously, when the European masters eventually understood, got the hang of it, like how to make fans. Well, first they would copy the Chinese designs because this is how the chinoiserie style became very popular because a lot more people could afford buying the Chinese, well, a la Chinese items because they were actually made in Europe. And then when this frenzy kind of started to kind of die down a little bit, they would come up also with the kind of the European designs of the fans, so to speak. So the fans come in different, well, there's several techniques. Like for example, the brise. The brise means kind of broken when the elements of the fans are kind of broken. So they kind of separated, right? Every part of them of the fan, or they can be plié. Plié coming from the French word for folds. So they would be just folded, like one piece but folded. Or it could be different combinations of these techniques and several others. Remember, I told you about the oldest exhibit? This one. It doesn't even look like a fan, like the proper like European fan, but this is a fan used in the Russian church. And this particular fan belonged to Metropolitan Iov. Metropolitan Iov blessed Peter the Great for his reign. He anointed Peter the Great to reign the country. And it is believed that exactly with this fan, Metropolite Iov inaugurated the Trinity Cathedral, one of the first churches that was built in St. Petersburg. Big deal. Big deal. So we're not sure if it was exactly that fan present at the inauguration, but it did believe to Metropolitan Iov. Yes, Metropolitan of Novgorod. Novgorod kind of Novgorod Principality. So this is like the one of the highlights of the collection. But there is obviously a lot more than just that. But this one is the oldest, and it's a very important thing, for St. Petersburg in such a collection. Well, this is the classic example of the brise fan because every element is separate, right? And for example, well, this fan was made from ivory and it was a present for a name day. It's written there of 1904, 14th October 1904, on the name day. And it was a present from a certain Varia to certain D. I don't know, it's a person whose name begins on letter D. So 1904, just a present, with just a little engraving over there. Great collection. I'll just be sharing, some of the items because I obviously don't have the detailed photograph and video of all the elements, but something I have. So this is this combo. It's brise because you see that the base parts are of the frame are like separated, but then it is connected, with the plie elements. And then obviously, because fans were such an important attribute of, of a costume, and it became also I would say, even a signature mark of every woman, then it would be the symbol of status. So they would come, all these fans would come in different styles with different decoration. It would go into extremes. Gold, mother of pearl, ivory was extremely popular. And every girl, like, fully fledged lady had to have, well, 50 or 60 different fans at some point. And not just only in St. Petersburg, actually, that was the French idea. The French invented that. I actually like this fan. I think it's beautiful. Or this one, this is also a different element. These are different kinds of fans. They are called palmat fan. This is by the way a children's fan. A palmat it because every element of the frame would be also decorated separately, and they would look more like a little palm, like a palmat. So they were usually fluffy or look like just have kind of more resemblance to a palm leaf or something like that. So that's why it's called palmat. And there is another name also. I discovered that's another name for this type of fans that got very popular in the middle of the 19th century, were inspired by Jenny Lind, who was a Swedish opera singer. She was so popular that the world just went crazy about her. They would be sold out, and she sang so beautifully. She was called the Swedish Nightingale. And the question is, why was a kind of fan named after her? Well, because it just happened so that during that time, exactly this type of fans were invented, and she was seen very often, with the fan on stage. Um, so maybe that's why it was associated with her. I'm not sure. So, but yeah, so Jenny Lynn fan or Palmet fan. I don't know if this has been a life changing knowledge. Probably not. But never hurts to know. Anyway, let's move on. So yeah, just a Palmet fan. There are also these type of fans, multi-purpose fans, and they also are called cascade fans because they would open like round shape, and they were also, you know, they would be people were crafty and they would come up with all sorts of innovations. So a fan could also be a mirror, could also be, could also have a little hollowing, just to place some items in, such as a handkerchief or something, or a lorgnette, or a binocular for theater, because, well, every girl had to take a fan with her to the theater. And you know what? I absolutely like this fan because it's an Italian fan, 1880s, and you see the title, the Caucasus. Because Caucasus were a popular travel destination in the 19th century, in the second half of the 19th century. And I am in the Caucasus, so big time as well. I just like this. I just love this. It's probably one of my favorite fans. I don't know. Um, it's so cute, so ornate. I mean, look at this. It's a combo, the classical combo of a very expensive fan. Or, as I said, people were so crafty, like this fan, for example. No matter how you open it, it would have the same, it could open from left to right or from right to left. It would have one and the same design. So if you fold it, you wouldn't see it, but if you open it, then you will have the painting. And it will be the same no matter how you open it, which way. Also, it could be the front side and the reverse side would have sometimes the designs from two sides, sometimes not. Well, it just depended. Or they would have different designs. That's also interesting. Like, obviously, it all depended on the budget. Just depended on the budget. It's just that. Yeah. Uh, well, I don't know. There would be different scenes, different artworks. Well, like this one, for example, the Plea fan, the offering of Abigail. There would be, and there would be also these trends. Let's say in the 1720s, you need to be painting, I don't know, biblical plots. In the 1760s, you need to be decorating your fans with the mythological scenes. And you know what? The most expensive fans would be designed by and hand painted by Francois Boucher, for example. Just imagine. Or, Lancret, or some other French artists of like the upper echelon. Big time. Who would have thought? Obviously, those type of fans would be very expensive. Oh, sorry. Now I'm back. I know I was muted, but now I'm back. I just want to return a minute. Yeah. Okay. And the the fashion for fans changed so quickly. And it was really, really, really impolite if a lady turned at an event with a fan that already was out of the trend. Horrible. Italian fan with the classical subject, Cornelia, mother of the Gracchi, mid 18th century. Beautiful, beautiful. I don't know how much it costs. Well, I think these are just actually a very political fan. So the portraits of the royal figures frame was made in the Netherlands, and the leaf was made in Austria. I don't know how it works, but probably then a new leaf was created. I don't know, but I think this is a very political fan. So who knew uh, that fans would be political too? This one is the most horrible. Well, I mean, it's beautiful, but it's made from a turtle shell. Ivory, okay, we know ivory, but the turtle shell, yeah, we know that they would make furniture, would decorate furniture with turtle shell. Well, and also they made fans from turtle shell. Some of the precious exhibits would be placed in these beautiful frames. So these type of fans, like 360 fans, would have the designs from both from the front side and mm, from the reverse side, and they would be different, interesting, and also sometimes and they could have and they could be of different subjects. So there were political fans, there were historical fans, and many others, and commercial fans, with all sorts. So people were very creative, and yes, they would use gold. Look at this one. Oh, France 1870s. So it's called a date. It's entirely made of mother of pearl, and it was just an accessory. It's just part of the accessories kind of addition to fans. But no wonder that fans were also a way to convey a message. All this language that was invented by the French in the 18th century, right? It's like if you open a fan from your right hand side, it means you are up for it. But from the left means you're not interested, right? And the way you move your fan, how quickly you do that, and exactly with the position of your hands, well, like relative to your head and your face, like all that, it just meant something because you couldn't say anything directly, right? You had to be doing this in this typical like allegorical way, but yeah, embroidery, lace work. Oh no, maybe this is the most horrible one. This is from Brazil, 1880s. It's the colibri bird effigy. It's a real bird, a colibri. and some and an ostrich feather, I think. I don't remember which one, but it's the feathers of other birds and then the colibri bird. Maybe this is no, I think this is the most horrible one. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's horrible. They just put a dead bird on the fan. Okay, the triple purpose fan, speaking of being more practical, so this is a fan and a magnifying glass and a lorgnette, well, an opera glasses, 1770s. Beautiful. Speaking of the details, well, this is what's painted there. So this is a plie kind of fan because it's a single piece, but it's just, folded over there. And it's the magnifying glass. Crazy. Beautiful. So this lady is wearing an English costume, like 19th century, and she's called in an original 19th century fan made from lace in a very good condition, by the way. So in this Palisander room or the green room, they have they have fans from all over the world. And remember, I told you there was also historical fans. So, for example, I was told a story that, well, there was the Jean-Pierre Blanchard, who was the pioneer of, well, flying. He actually performed the very first flight on the hot air balloon in 1784. And there was a fan released with the story, well, just to commemorate that flight of Blanchard. Well, it doesn't look like a hot air balloon, I don't know, but this one does. So I don't know if it really had the wings, but I've seen a lot of different illustrations. I don't know how accurate the illustrations are, but there was a story told about this flight on the fan. So political fans, historical fans, like educational fans, and also promotional fans. I think it's cute. And it's such a big passion of this person. Some Russian fans, this is actually also a children's fan couple in Russian costume. That's the time to early 20th century, the so-called Russian revival, or the Neo Russian style was very popular, as you probably know from a lot of my tours. Or this one, hold on a sec. So do I actually have any info with regards to this fan? I probably do. Don't remember now. So, oh, this is the life of Moses. This is the life of Moses, a Russian fan from the 18th century. I think the second half of the 18th century. Yeah, the life of Moses. Another Russian revival fan, the Troika, the horse-driven carriage driven by three, 1889. I also like the one behind it with the lady with the mouth with the cigarette. Yeah, well, I have a little bit of closer short video of the fan. There you go. The problem was that the filming actually was not really allowed. It's like I paid for the photography so I could take photographs, and that's also one of the reasons I couldn't really make full videos because it was not allowed. But I took just little bits of it, and also I found some high resolution photographs online, so that's not an issue. I like this one very much. This is like a Ukrainian man sitting somewhere in the woods, and then this like booty. What is it doing there? Like spying on this Ukrainian gentleman? I don't know what's going on in here, but I love it. It's like, I don't know, I think this putty is like I don't know, this cherub is so grumpy or judgmental. Maybe he's upset with something. I don't know. Maybe this Ukrainian man just don't want to play with him and he's like, I don't know, screw you. I don't know. I'm so sorry. I don't know. Coming with whatever options I have, like a really magical one. I don't know. I don't know the history of that fan. Well, this one I've find very interesting. It's the early 1900s. That's true. And these are all sorts of promotional fans from around the world, not really of any historic value, but this person is a big fan of fan of fans. So, well, this is like the airways, promo in fans, museums. I think this is from one of the museums in the States, 1920s, very Art Deco-ish, right? You can see that. A little bit of the Art Deco. And as a little bonus, a cherry on top, remember I told you that some of the most precious fans are actually in the Louis XIV room and in that chest over there behind the screen. Well, so there is a fan that belonged to the Rothschild family. That's the fan. That's my photograph, and it's not really the best quality of the photograph that I have. So, but this one is the 19th century, belonged to the Rothschilds. There's even a sticker from the case. Well, at Baron the Rothschild, you could see that, right? You could see it over there. So it belonged to his daughter, and I have no idea how it ended up in the family. Well, in the collection of the Mr. Pelayev. I found a very short um, video in the news program about the museum because I wanted to show you this. I wanted to show you these fans well more detailed way, and it was on the newscast from like 2014, and I think the museum opened like in 2012 or 2013. So there was a little like 2 minute long newscast about the museum, and they indeed highlight this fan for like a couple of seconds, and I just screen recorded a little close-up video of the fan. So this was in the room of the daughter of Baron the Rothschild. Cool, but it's just that. That's all I have. I wish I could take you on a longer tour. I wish I could show you more, but that's just everything I have. And again, the museum is still closed, and I don't know if it will ever open again, but at least that's at least something. So the chat is open. Let me know if you have any questions. And hi to all those who joined us a little later. Good to see you. Hi, Sharon. I didn't expect you to join. I knew you would be very busy, with all the family coming in and all the birthdays. But, thank you so much for joining. Yeah, so let me share with you the links just in case who knew that there is such a thing as a fan language. Yeah, there is. It is a thing, and every lady was supposed to speak it, and also men were supposed to understand it because how otherwise they would interpret it, whether a girl wanted to dance with them or she was not up for it. Yeah, because they couldn't just say yes or no. That would be like too much. So, yes. So, in case you missed the fun rooftop art exhibition and market, the link is over there. The Solo Lucky Neighborhood walk-in tour recording should be available like 24 hours. And then tomorrow, there's going to be a one-off Lavender Field live stream, not far from Tbilisi. As I said, we are hiring a driver and the car with a friend of mine. We're splitting all the expenses, and I will be filming a lot because we are visiting several places along the way. And then I've been given permission to stream from the lavender farm. So it's going to be lovely. Also, I'm hoping to take you on a walk in the village where the farm is. Let's see how it goes. The weather should be fine though, but and then Misha gonna be talking about the literature of the period of Thaw after Stalin passed away, and the Tower of David Museum, just another episode. Oh, Sharon, you just go home to see the wonderful fans. You have bought about 15 since starting of oh, I see the fans still come in really handy. Well, yeah, actually, I could use a fan during the summer, but I would probably just go for this, the one that run on batteries because I think they're more efficient. But yeah, there also one that can be charged, through a USB. I think things are more handy, but obviously the traditional fans are just more fancy. Thank you, Sharon. At least it will smell nice. Yes, it will smell nice for sure tomorrow. Absolutely. Yes. So, and as usual, I mainly use electric ones, but at Chabad on Shabbat, yeah, you still have used. Yes, exactly. Yeah, of course you can't use the electrical one on Shabbat and Chabad. Yeah, I can understand that. Well, I used to have a fan too. I don't remember where it is. Nothing fancy though. Not so artsy as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. So, Helen saying, back in the day, both fans and flowers had a language and etiquette dictated what flowers a man gave to a woman. And she yes, absolutely, absolutely. So the language of and like the beauty spots as well also meant something. That's exactly this 18th century when you could not really say anything directly, and you just had to use this allegorical language. Yeah, nothing fancy. Exactly, exactly. Yeah, so you use your pretty ones. I need to see the photographs. I need to see the collection you have. So you not only do you have the Bell collection, but also some fancy fans. I need to see them, Sharon, whenever you have a minute, obviously. So, but thank you so much for joining. So I thought you would enjoy this little treat from me. Well, I think it's a unique museum. There are not so many in the world, like France, London, Paris, London, and I think that's pretty much it. A museum that's solely about stands, not as accessories. It's a big deal to me. Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. As you know, your support means a lot to me and will come really handy tomorrow. So you can send a PayPal donation, you could buy me a coffee, and I will see you tomorrow for a lot more fun. And it's highly likely I'll be going live also, maybe once, maybe even twice during the day before the live stream, maybe on my Instagram, maybe on my YouTube, but I can't promise that. Oh, thank you so much, Dolly. Yeah, I got your tip. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Oh, Sharon, you were disappointed at the London Fan Museum. Who would have thought? Actually, it's a very big one. I think from what I read, just Wikipedia basically. It's big. It actually occupies like two buildings. Oh, well, this one is very small. This one is just like two rooms basically in the three-room apartment. But I was impressed. I was impressed with the collection. Thank you, everyone. It's been lovely. 4 tours with you in such a good company in the beautiful places among other beautiful people. Oh, it's been fun. Thank you so much. And oh, Dolly, so you've been in the one in Paris. Was it good? I also read somewhere that it's not that easily accessible, but maybe the information was wrong because I've never been there and I haven't really studied, fans that much. Well, but I had to, prepare some vocabulary. Thank you so much. Mario says the fan museum was hardly a life-changing experience, but it was cool and curious. Exactly. Who knows what brise or plie means? Yeah, so now you know brise, broken plie, the folded, and now you know that one type of fan uh, uh, was named after a Swedish opera singer, Jenny Lind. Who would have thought? You've been to all the museums in Paris, Dolly. My imaginary hat off to you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It's time to read Grisha some books. I'm not gonna be seeing him till tomorrow evening, so I need to give Grisha my full attention. Thank you so much. Well, I didn't know either, but I did some reading about different kinds of fans, and then this name came up. So I don't know. I didn't know about Jenny Lind even, but I suppose It's just, me. Thank you, everyone. It's been so much fun. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Bye bye, everyone.